Hello, I'm Janie Unruh, and welcome to part two of my mission stories. Today I'm going to be talking about Nepal and India. Now, if you had already listened to my stories while I was on the Amazon in Brazil, that was part one. And after I came back from Brazil on the Amazon, I was totally in love with the Lord even more than I already was, knowing my Bible really, really well, having talked to my family. Some of them had told me that if I became an Adventist, that they would disown me. Uh, I had learned so many Bible truths while I was over there. And at the end of my trip while I was there, I went to talk to the pastor and told him all these wonderful truths that I had learned. And he said, "Welcome to the Seventh day Adventist Church." I had no idea that these were things that the Adventists believed. And so there was my search then, to find out more about the Seventh day Adventist Church, since it too had seemed to have found what I found in the Bible. And so I came back from Brazil then, essentially a Seventh Day Adventist, believing in the Sabbath and many of the Bible truths that are the same as the Adventist group as a whole group, and and I was sharing these things with my family. They were up in arms. I was up in arms. I realized that what I was doing was the wrong thing. I was going about sharing truth with them in the wrong way, and I needed to have a different approach. And I felt like I was doing more harm than good. And I just cried out to God, and I said, "God, send me anywhere. Just send me anywhere. I'll go anywhere in the world that you call me to. I just need to be separated right now because I feel like I am totally goofing up with my family and my friends." And and then I got a call from ADRA and asked me, or not ADRA, AFM, and asked me if I was interested in starting a medical clinic in Huas village in the middle of the Annapurna Mountains in Nepal. And I said, yes, I would. And as fast as I could get there was as fast as I got there. Um, this was little did I know that this too would be an adventure and an experience of a lifetime, like was my trip on the Amazon. Um, so I had just come back from the Amazon for 5 months. You can go back and listen to part one. And my hope in sharing these stories is really to encourage you to step out beyond your comfort zone and to ask God to use you in ways that you have never known or realized before. My hope is that you will learn to understand and trust God in expanding your borders and your influence to those around you, and that you would allow yourself to be used in ways that you can't even think of. I know getting out of our comfort zone is scary. I've been there many, many times, but I can tell you that it is going to be the trip of a lifetime for you, and you are going to just fall in love with life all over again. I have a picture that sits in my bedroom on the wall, and it says, "If your dreams don't scare you, then they aren't big enough." This is the life that I want in Christ. I want my life to be so hid in Christ that when people see me, they see Him. The stories that I share are within the grasp of each person hearing. And these are my personal experiences, and you'll have your personal experiences. God doesn't work the same way with all people at all times, but He works with us as an individual. And I just loved my time in Nepal, in India. This was a little village. Well, this is a little hospital that I worked at for the first couple of weeks while I learned more to do. the missionary work in this part of the world, which was quite different than jungle nursing. It was the this was the outside of the hospital. This is Sheer Memorial Hospital, and then this is a patient room inside. Life was also very simple in Nepal and India, just like it was in Brazil and all of the other missions that I have been on in other countries, and have loved every one of them equally. Have had experiences in each one of them, and ones that I just hold so close and dear to my heart. Travel was quite different in Nepal compared to the Amazon. Here, this is a common form of transportation, and this was the transportation that I took in order to get out to the village that I was going to work at. It was a 2-day journey from Kathmandu to uh, to my village, and we stopped about after an 8-hour bus ride in this bus. And many times I took this trip many times, and oftentimes it was my dog and me taking this trip, and we were actually the ones on top of this bus as well, because many times the inside of the bus was too squishy for my dog, and his feet were constantly getting stepped on. So we would take an 8-hour bus trip like this one, people crammed in with 2 to 3 times the capacity that is probably legal, people hanging out windows, people all sitting on each other's laps, lined up in the aisleway, hanging out the door as they are moving, riding on top of the bus. And for me, I preferred the fresh outdoor air. Now, keep in mind, as in many other countries, this trip was no exception. That oftentimes you'd have a high rock cliff on one side, high up, and then you would have a cliff down the other side with no guardrails, rickety roads, basically enough the width for one vehicle, if even one at all, and one wrong move would take you tumbling down. Nope, you can stay back at the bus picture. Would take you down, tumbling down in your certain death. For me, it was exciting, and I just figured, God didn't bring me over here to kill me, or for me to be killed. So I just lived life to its fullest, and I always enjoyed riding on top of the bus where there was fresh air, and I didn't have to compete for a lot of space with people, because that was not always a preferred place for people to sit. But my dog and I surely enjoyed the uh, that convertible view. This is a rickety road. Then once we got out to on after this bus ride, which was 8 hours, I spent the night at a little tiny hotel, which was only 2 or 3 bedrooms with a dirt floor, and then they just gave us a little mattress that was laid right on the dirt floor, and then a few sheets. We spent the night there, and then the next morning we had to leave on another bus for about another 4 hours. And then when we got dropped off in the middle of nowhere, literally, when the bus dropped us off, I had to ask 3 or 4 people, "Are you sure this is where I'm being dropped off at? There's nothing here." And they assured me that yes, this is the right place. So this was a bridge that I was faced with, that I had to walk over. You can see how little that the person is down there, and um, during monsoon season, that river was raging, and there really was no way to cross except this really rickety bridge. As you can see, slats are missing, and it's quite scary. I would always have to hang on to the railing with one hand and have to hold on to the collar of my dog with my other hand in case he ever fell through any of those slats. And one time he actually did fall through on one of our multiple trips back into Kathmandu again. Thankfully, I was able to, I had my hand on him, or he would have plunged down, having really hurt himself, if not worse. So this is along the path, this rocky cliff here. This was along the path that was quite a common occurrence along the way. Uh, it was rickety, it was old, it was challenging. It was 12 miles into the village where I was. And at first, it took quite a bit of time to and energy the far majority of the day. This next picture is once I got up on top of some of these cliffs and I was able to overlook the entire valley. So my village was even way beyond the shadows of these mountains. So we had to move around and all these mountains and go across streams and rickety bridges, and it was an awesome highlight of my life. Nothing that I would change for anything. Once I finally got out to the village, this is a group of children that I had a strong bond and ministry with. These children really were attached to me. I found them coming to me and even skipping school, but I would not allow that. And it was, for them to go to school was even a privilege anyway. It was such an, a remote place. The opportunity to learn was few. But what I would do with these kids is I would tell them that they were able to come see me anytime during my lunch hour or their lunch hour at school, or they could come see me either before their school or after school. So they would all come pack in as a group of children, and I would lift them all up onto my table here, my counter, and I would then proceed to treat each one of them independently, whatever their little issues were. I taught them how to clean their own wounds. I taught them how to clean their body and wash it with a water spigot that our group had put in for them. I was constantly giving them piggyback rides, and even though these children constantly had lice, um, for some reason I never got it, even though our heads touched on numerous occasions. Um, this was another highlight of my um, of my life here. Um, when I was there was let me see. So I think I got one picture out of line here. So I'll tell you when I get to that picture later because I see that I misplaced it. But um, children were not allowed to go to school unless they had shoes and a writing utensil. Most had a writing utensil, but some of them were kept out of school simply because they didn't have any shoes. And so one of my many trips back and forth to Kathmandu and back to either get supplies or to work on my visa, or just some of the challenges that I was having. One of these trips, I saw little tiny mom pop stores that were selling shoes, little tiny sandals. And I said, "Oh, Lord, I could buy sandals for some of these children and then they could actually go to school." So I went over to the shoe rack where I saw a bunch of sandals for sale. They were just regular shower thongs. And I said, "Oh, Lord, hmm, I don't know um, what size shoes I need. There's multiple size from little tiny kids, almost toddlers to into a man's adult size shoe." And I said, "I don't know what size shoes everybody wears, or what color would they even like." And so I'm talking to the Lord as I'm looking at this table full of sandals, and I said, "Okay, Lord, I'm just going to start picking shoes. You and I'm going to start moving my hands and I'm going to start picking up shoes, and you guide my hand to know what sizes to get, because um, I don't want to get I don't want to get a bunch of wrong sizes and they're not going to help anybody. So I grabbed a bunch and I paid for them. I don't know how many pairs I got, maybe whatever would fit in my backpack, 10, 15 pairs. And then finished my shopping and my duties that I had to do in town. And then I would go back to my village again on the rickety bus, uh, spend the night in a little hotel with a dirt floor, often cockroaches on the walls. Um, and then the next morning, get out and another 4-hour bus ride out the rickety road and the bridge where slats were missing, and 12 more miles. I did that on numerous occasions. And, I finished my duties that I had to do in Kathmandu, took the 2-day journey back to my village, and then started to let kids know that I had some shoes. And as the days went by, and maybe even a week or two later, there was kid after kid that came, and then some even adults that came and said that they needed shoes. I was always able to go to the back and fit them a pair of shoes. And I was down to the last couple of pairs, and I said, "Boy, Lord, I've only got a couple pairs left. I hope that they are the right size for whoever comes. Bring to me whoever will fit into these shoes so I don't disappoint them." Sure enough, one person came, I was able to fit them, and the last person came, and that was the last pair, and they actually fit. I just was thanking God and knowing that I had been the recipient and all these people had been the recipient of a miracle. I thank God so much. I then went, I had to do more business a while later in Kathmandu and went back to that same store to see if they still had the sandals on sale. It was a couple weeks later. Uh, And I said the same thing. Okay, Lord, you did that for me once, and I'm going to trust again that you'll do it for me again. I'm just going to reach my hand to grab some sizes, a variety of sizes and colors, and you guide me to know which ones to purchase. So again, I I grabbed a bunch. I don't remember how many. I just grabbed how many ever would fit in my backpack. Another 10 or 15. I don't know. It may have been 20. I don't know. It was quite a few. Whatever I could just jam in, and I couldn't even completely close my backpack. There were so many shoes. Did my duties in town. Took the 2-day trek back into my village again, and again I said, "Okay, Lord, um, bring whoever needs these shoes. You know who they fit, and you did it once for me, and I believe that you're going to do it again." I shouldn't say that I was so certain, because I really, it could have been just by chance that this happened. I knew that I had been the recipient. I believe that I'd been the recipient of a miracle, but sometimes it takes a little more to actually get through my head. So here I am again, believing that and hoping that that was a miracle, and that God would do it again. And so I prayed that same thing: bring whoever needs these shoes. And again, over the days and the next few weeks, people of all size feet came to me, and again I was able to find pairs of shoes that fit them. People would come in wearing bottles on, like, liter bottles on their feet, because that's all they had. And and, and they were strapped somehow around their feet. And as the last few shoes were remaining, again, I said, "God, will you please, you know who fits these shoes. So bring these two people to me again." And I prayed, and I finished my prayer. And sure enough, within the next day or two, those two pairs of shoes were perfectly fit to the next two people. And again, I just couldn't believe that this, I was certain now that this had been a miracle. But sometimes we're just so hard to convince, because as time went by, I had to do more duties in Kathmandu. Took the 2-day trek back with my dog again, and came back. Did the same thing. I went over to the shoe rack. The shoes were still on sale. Grabbed as many as could fit into my backpack. Said the same thing. God, you guide my hand. Took the 2-day trek back into the village again, and same prayer. I said, God, you did this twice for me. Would you please do this again? And and by this time, I'm pretty convinced that this was not just happenstance. I'm pretty convinced that this was a miracle. But sometimes we just don't know what miracles God will perform for us. So I always allow that possibility that God may not answer my prayer again, and I'm okay with that. And if He does answer it, then I'll just be that much more grateful. So that was kind of the gist of my prayers, realizing that He did it once, but doesn't mean that He has to do it again. He doesn't obligate Himself by answering our prayers once. He answers prayers according to um, to our benefit, our salvation, in His glorification. So here I am with this third batch of shoes. After the days go by, and in a couple of weeks again, people are coming to me one after another, and I'm able to give them shoes again. Again, the last two shoes remain, and I said, Lord, you've done it before, and you know, I know that you're not obligated to answer my prayer, but bring the two people who are left who need these shoes. And the one person came and fit in perfect. And that last shoe, I prayed again. I said, God, there's only one pair left. You know who this pair fits, so bring them. And that last person came, and sure enough, it fit. You know, so many times we have not because we ask not. God is so willing when we are willing to stretch ourselves and to pray things that are virtually impossible. He is so willing to help. This this young boy, he people would often walk for 2 and 3 days to get to my village. This boy, no, I had been a burn nurse for several years prior to this situation here. He had been burned a few weeks earlier. His family did not know how to treat him, so they assumed putting mud on him was the best home treatment. By the time he got to me, you can see a little bit of infection. It's already starting to turn creamy white in some places. His chest was quite badly burned. He had actually reached up on a table, and he had poured a cup of boiling water down upon himself. And his family was trying to treat him unsuccessfully. They had heard that there was an American doctor out there. Now, at that time, I was not a doctor and I was a nurse, but they didn't have a translation for the word nurse. So they just called me a doctor. And so to them, that a doctor meant not doctor as we define it, but just somebody who does healthcare and helps people. So I was quite used to doing burns, and I had looked through the pharmacy, and we only had very mild pain medication. I had nothing of any strength out there, and so I gave this boy what I had, and I prayed for him because I know how painful it can be, and I just asked God to take away his pain. Here I am. I'm debriding him. I'm using scalpel and scissors to wipe away all of the burn and infection away from him, all the dead skin, and I did not hear a peep out of him. And it took me probably about 45 minutes to really clean that up and then to dress it properly. And by the time was all said and done, I just, my heart was breaking. I was almost in tears myself, knowing that he must really be hurting when I was used to using some very high powered drugs to help people in their pain while I debrided them as a burn nurse, because burns are extremely painful. So I got him up off the table after I dressed him properly, and I looked at his face and I knelt down next to him, and I just said, "I'm really sorry that I had to do that to you." And I just saw one little tear coming down his eye, knowing that that was a tear of both pain that I had just inflicted upon him, the biggest hug. And I'll tell you, of all the money that I got paid as a burn nurse, wasn't in comparison to the thankfulness and the hug and the smile that I got from this boy. There's just something about a big smile that is worth so much more value than money. And God is so gracious. This was another patient that had almost severed off a toe. I'm Patients came to me in all varieties. People heard that this doctor was teaching people what they had, how they most likely got it, and how to treat it naturally without pharmaceuticals, and um, uh, how to prevent it next time. And so, just to give you a really simple example, if somebody came to me with constipation, I would not give them drugs. Instead, I would send them off to eat a high fiber diet. And I'd send them off to go eat 6 oranges, for example, or several papayas. And then I would tell them to come back to me the next day to report back in to see how it went. And 100% of the time, this always worked. And then, of course, I would always tell them how to prevent this again. You can put that to the next slide, Michael. And so this was almost a near laceration, getting cleaned up. And then this next slide is a very interesting story. This couple, as I was doing my own nursing care, I was being observed by this woman here. So I'm just doing my daily care with people, and I have asked her day after day if she would like me to see her, and her answer was always no. So I just waited patiently. I wasn't really for sure why she was watching me. She said she just wanted to see how I did things, and so I just allowed her to watch me, um, and take care of everybody. And I suppose to see the outcome of several of my patients to see if they truly got healed or not. People started walking hours and even sometimes 2 or 3 days. There was one family who actually walked one of their family members for 4 days getting to me because they wanted to know what happened to them, how to get rid of it naturally, how to prevent it next time, and what they had. They were very interested. In the beginning, I noticed that most of my patients were only wanting pharmaceuticals. When I would only give them natural remedies, they soon became disinterested. But then I saw a huge shift over time in people who wanted to know about natural remedies. And of course, people who needed pharmaceuticals and were beyond uh, the care that I knew at the time. I gave pharmaceuticals as needed, but I think many people came simply because they thought that pharmaceuticals were going to keep them healthy. And they didn't need pharmaceuticals, like, for example, if they just had a common form of constipation, and they would walk away disappointed, but yet I gave them all the power in order to treat themselves, to not have to come back to me. But people started to appreciate the knowledge that I was sharing with them. And so eventually people started coming specifically for the remedies that I was teaching them. And I think this woman was among those people. And I noticed that she was very, very sick. Finally, I don't remember how long it went on, for maybe a few weeks. She watched me day after day. I don't remember exactly how many days anymore, but it was probably a few weeks. And she finally was willing to see me. I asked her what her condition was, and she shared with me um, some really major symptoms. And then I asked her if she was on any medications, and she shared an entire list of pharmaceuticals. And having been a burn nurse and an ICU nurse, I knew what these drugs were. I knew how they worked, and I knew that they were very high powered and that they are not ones that should be taken off immediately. Because, for example, some blood pressure medication, they're if they have high blood pressure and you take them off their high blood, and then their blood pressure goes down because of the medication, then you immediately take them off of their medication, they can have a rebound effect where they're in it, because if they haven't made any lifestyle changes, then their blood pressure can rebound right back up again and cause some serious damage, whether it's a stroke or a heart attack or sudden death or something terrible. So I knew this about these drugs. There was heart drugs, there was kidney drugs, there was hypertension drugs. She must have had a bag full of 10 different drugs or even more. And I prayed and I said, "Oh Lord, I am now qualified to take care of this lady. She really needs a doctor, and she needs a hospital, because she is walking death right now." And I'm talking to the Lord, and then I asked her, I said, "Would you mind if I prayed?" And she said, "No, that's okay." So I prayed and I asked for God's wisdom to help me to understand. Because I did ask her before I prayed, I said, "Can you get to the hospital?" Which is a 2 day journey to Kathmandu, or even a 1 day journey to Pokhara, which had at least a small clinic. And she said no, that they were too poor, that it would not only just take enough food for her, but food for whoever else, plus any money that it took, and they had no money or enough food to feed people. So traveling just was virtually impossible for most people. I that's when I asked her, I said, "Would you mind if I prayed?" And I just said, "Oh God, please give me your wisdom. I have to understand, I have to know how to treat her, or she's going to die, because there's nobody else here, and she's on all these drugs that I don't know what to do with." And something so strong came into my mind, and it told me to take her off all of her drugs immediately, and that it was her drugs that are actually killing her. Because remember, I just said that people were coming to me simply because they wanted the drugs. It wasn't really that they had anything wrong with them, because a lot of them did not have anything wrong with them. And or the people that maybe did have something wrong, it was just minor and was easily rectified through natural remedies. So here I am, and I know that voice. I knew that voice that told me to take her off of all of her drugs immediately, all at once, and that it was the drugs that were killing her. I was terrified to know the knowledge that I just had. But I said, "Lord, is this you? Is it really you? I have to know." And so I I said, "Help me to know if this is you. How can I tell her to go off of her drugs?" And instantly a thought came into my mind that said to offer to pay for her medications. So after my prayer, I said, "What I would like to do, I believe what your problem is that all your drugs are interacting with each other, and they're giving you all of these symptoms as side effects. and it's really important that you come off of all of your drugs, and I'm going to take you off of all of them right now. Can you show me your medications? She went home, came back with her medications, an entire I knew that the only way that she was going to give them to me was to buy them back because I knew how much money they cost. She willingly gave them to me, and she uh, went home, I knowing that she was now off of all of these medications, because I asked her if she had any more at home for her, and she said no. So I was quite certain. I saw my patients for the rest of the day, and I was just such I was scared, I guess is probably the best word to say, of what was going to happen to her. So I made one trip after another to her house multiple times a day. I would do it in the morning before my patients started, during lunch, after supper, before bed, and in between, if at any time that I had a spare few minutes. Thankfully, she just lived just a few minutes walk from me, and just down just the next property over. So I would go see her routinely, and it wasn't but no time that she, within a few days, if I remember right, that she was up and walking around and feeling wonderful. And then I I was called upon her again. She was feeling well, and she came to me and I was continually going to her house. And then, as I on one of the visits to her house, I noticed that her husband was now laying down. Now, I had met him several times, and the rest of the family there, and I noticed that he was laying down, and he looked like he was on his deathbed. And I asked her, what is wrong with him now? And she explained a lot of the same symptoms that she was having. And oh boy, just like the shoes, I had to test again. And I just prayed again. I said, "Oh Lord, I feel like this is deja vu, that I'm replaying this again. He's acting like he's on all these drugs, and these are side effects, because I've seen him already. And what do I do?" Now, I had asked if I could pray over him, and he said yes. And so this is my prayer over him as I'm talking to the Lord in English. And I just said, "Lord, I need your wisdom. I know that you really helped me with his wife, but is this his problem too?" And that small, still voice came back again, and with such assurance that I knew what I knew. And that same voice said, he needs to come off of all of his medications, and and he will be fine. These are side effects from all the drugs. That it was instant knowledge that came into my mind. And again, with trepidation, I asked to see all of his medications. Again, he showed me an entire bag full of medications. And again, high powered ones that I knew that people should not come off of. I knew better, but I also trusted God more. And when I was asking God to help give me the knowledge of my patient's health, I knew that I could trust him. So again, I offered to pay for his bag of medications in exchange for him getting off of all of these drugs. I purchased the medications, took them home with me. Again, now I'm visiting both of them multiple times a day. She she is routinely uh, up and at 'em, uh, just within a few days after taking her off of all of her medications. He, the same. I would constantly go over there, make an assessment, just like I did with her, and seeing what really needed to be done. God got me through those like a miracle. Within a few days, he too was up and on his feet and actually farming again. She had been already up on her feet for several days. She was doing childcare, working in the fields again, and doing her daily duties. I I continued then to go to their home for. I actually became friends with them because I was visiting them so much, and sometimes I would just chat for if I was after work, I would sit and chat for them for maybe half an hour or an hour, and sometimes I would eat with them. It was truly a huge blessing. Then I learned that um, of a tragedy that had happened. I was told to go down to their home, and then on my next visit, which was already a routine visit for me by then, I noticed both of them were on their deathbed again, and I was totally confused. And I asked, as I walked up to their house, I noticed a hole in the ground in front of their house that had not been there before. Now, this is a dirt ground. They have dirt floor in their house. This is more like a thatch roof with mud sides. You can see what it's like. This is the inside of their home that you can see, and that man there, the husband, is holding a broom, and so that's actually how they sweep their home. They make homemade brooms, and and then you can see homemade baskets there, kind of faintly in the back, um, and you can see that very poor people, very lovely people though, people I just fell in love with. Uh, so anyway, I saw this hole in the dirt before I walked in their home. I didn't really think anything of it, though I did notice it because it had never been there before. I walked into the home. They're both on their deathbed, and I asked, "What happened? You both were up and around, and you were happy and healthy and doing your daily duties, and overnight you're both sick again. Do you have more drugs?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Well, what happened?" And and then they proceeded to tell me the hole in the front, because I then asked about the hole in the front, and they proceeded to tell me that they were so thankful to their God for healing them that they made an offer, that they sacrificed an animal the night before. I was devastated, and I then had to share the whole meaning of salvation and about how God wants our whole heart, not just part of it, and that He doesn't want to be competing. He will not compete with other gods. That God is a jealous God, and that He wants to have all of our heart, not part of it, and not some of it, some of the time, but all of it, all of the time. And He's very sad that this happened, and He removed the blessing of health from them both because of this. Now, I had prayed over them, and I was, at this time, I'm going back and forth into Kathmandu, and the police were coming to our mission house several times because we were talking about Jesus and about Christianity. And the police told us that we were not allowed to talk about the Lord anymore. Well, ended up making a deal with them that that if, as long as we will talk, this was our property that we purchased, and it belonged to the mission field, and it wasn't government property. So we made the deal that we won't talk about the Lord off of our property, and they would not arrest us then. And being arrested meant that you were put into a jail cell with nothing but four walls and no way to get out. And that also meant that you had to have family and friends to feed you, to water you, to wash your clothes, to even give you clothes, to give you bedding. There was nothing. You just had an empty cell with nothing, and your family had to provide for literally everything. And if you didn't have family, then you died in the cell. And so that was what we were up against. Well, I on one of these trips, um, I that I was coming back from Kathmandu, their adult son had come back, and he had come to see me about what was happening with his parents. He had been in India working, and he was back on a vacation time and wanted to know about their condition and what he could do and what I could do to help them. And now this was just a few days after um, they had gotten sick, and I had gone to see them, but I had also had to go into Kathmandu, and and he caught me at a time when I was actually off of our property, and I was actually on federal land, and but yet he was asking me about the Lord, because he told me that they told him about the story of the hole and about how the Lord took the blessing of health away from them. And I proceeded to share the Lord with them, and I shared my version of the story, and it was the same version as he had gotten from his parents. And then he wanted to know about this God of the Bible that I had been speaking to them about. And there, knowing that I was on forbidden ground to speak, I my humanity wanted to say, "Oh, let's go up to the mission house and speak." But I knew that would have been the wrong approach. Something told me that was wrong, and so there I spoke my heart with this adult son. And then I eventually went up and got him a Bible in his own language and in the Hindi language. And I came back and I told him to read the book of John to his parents. And so he then, I mean, we had a Bible study right there for probably well over an hour. He took the Bible and he went and shared with his parents. And in the meanwhile, he had gone for, he was coming and going throughout the day, visiting people and friends, and I would come and go, and for the next couple of days, seeing how they were doing, and one time they were still sick on very very sick, and I asked them, so how has it been having your son home? Is he reading a book to you? Oh, every day, multiple times a day, he's reading this out of this big book that you gave him, and I said, really? Is there a particular place that he's reading from? It's the name. It's a book of John. And I said, really? What are you learning? And they proceeded to tell me of the blessings of the Lord and what they were learning. At that point, I knew that they were safe in the hands of the Lord and that God would bring them back again. Unfortunately, if you had listened to part 2 of my testimony, you would realize at this point I was running back and forth to Kathmandu because I had to renew my visa. And on one of my very last trips back into town, um, these stories kind of fill in those trips. So in my testimony, I kind of give you the version of what happened while I was in Kathmandu with the government officials. But here now I'm sharing more stories that fill in the gaps of what happened these times that I came back home again when I was going back and forth. And so my last time to see this couple was a time that I kind of had a hunch that I wasn't coming back, though I didn't know, but the Lord did tell me to take all of my things. And it didn't, it just kind of seemed surreal to me. It was just kind of, couldn't really believe what was happening. When I knew that I was going to have to flee the country to another country, I think I was just in a little denial because of I was just terrified. What I saw coming in the future. Though I didn't see the full picture, and I thank God for that now because the way that He ordained it all to happen, it just I just thank Him so much. So go back and listen to my testimony. and to fill in these gaps. And so on my last trip into Kathmandu was when God had already told me to bring in one visit back in and to leave it. And then on another time, he told me to bring in everything else and to leave it. And this time, I actually gave away all of my food and gave away everything to the local people and to some of the people that I'd really come to know and love. And I'm heading back into town, realizing that this is probably the last time I'm going to see these people for a while. So as the government officials, I'll overlap just a little bit of a story here with my testimony, but the government officials kept telling me to come back again and again and again, but yet kept giving me excuses one after another that that they were um, that they were busy, someone wasn't there, the paperwork wasn't signed, someone went on vacation. Whatever the excuse was, it was always something different. I was always to go back to my village and then come back again. And so I did this time and time again for a few months until God finally, on one trip, he also told me to purchase a train ticket. And another trip, on a trip before that, he told me to purchase a visa to India. So one trip after another, God was just kind of inching me along piece by piece without really showing me the full picture until this last time my visa was just about to expire for Nepal, and they told me on my last morning once again to come and come to them like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And knowing that my train ticket was for 1 o'clock, I was leaving at 1, and they wanted me to come at 3. And if I showed up at 3, I'd miss my train. I really wasn't thinking much about the logistics at the time, other than to say, okay, I'll be back at 3. And something told me that was what I was supposed to say. Okay, I'll be back at 3. And I really thought I was going to be back at 3. But as soon as I left his presence, the government official, because they were trying to bribe me all the time, either bribe me with money or bribe me with sex, or, they wanted something, my dog. And no, I wasn't going to give them anything. If God wanted me there, it was going to be without bribery and it was going to be in his way. And I wasn't about to stay there beyond my visa. So here I now realize I left this man's presence, and it just hit me after I walked out of the building that I am now to get on that train. And I was horror struck that I realized I'm going to have to flee the country now. And thinking that I just told them that I was going to be back at 3, which I actually thought I would be when I said it to him. And realizing that I'm going to be long gone by 3 o'clock by the time I left his presence. And all of this was coming to my mind now, and God's playing this movie in my mind, thinking I'm really going to flee the country now. So I realized in God's providence, that all things work for the glory of God, for those who trust in him. So I got on the train and with my dog, and he's a large black dog. He was a black lab mix, so he was probably 85 to 90 pounds, quite a large dog. And people there just were not used to seeing such large dogs. It was literally like parting of the Red Sea. Wherever we had gone, he people would just flee. They would be running with their children. Uh, Husbands would be grabbing their wives. Mothers would be grabbing their children to get out of our way. But yet he was just a big lover boy, and so he didn't know what was happening. Um, so I go to get on the train, and and I had to purchase a room by myself, one with 2 beds because of my dog. And because the train ticket seller told me that people would be too afraid to stay in a room with me, so I had to purchase the whole room. I said, fine. If that's the only way to get him on, I'm not leaving Nepal without him. We are either staying together or we're leaving together. I'm not leaving without him. I'm not leaving him. So I bought the whole thing. I went into my room, and a train attendant came and saw that I had my dog, and he told me in Nepalese that my dog had to leave the train, but I could stay. And I explained my situation, and I said that I purchased the whole room because that's what I was told, just for my dog. And I said, he won't be any problem. I have a muzzle for him if that would make you feel better, but he won't bite. He's just a lover boy. Well, I'm trying to explain all this to him in English, because I'm pretending that I don't know the language, because I I I don't know what to do. I'm not leaving him, and how do I get out of the country? And so he leaves with the limited English. I don't know really how much he understood, but I'm explaining this in English to him, pretending like I don't know Nepalese. And then he comes back, and in the meantime, I'm praying. I'm saying, oh God, please help me. I am not leaving without him. I am not leaving without him. You provided a miracle for him to be here, which I didn't share with you yet, but you provided a miracle for him to be here, and he's here with me. And I don't believe that you intend for us to be separated. I don't believe for a second. If I have to, run across that border with him on foot, I will do that. But I'm not leaving him. So in about 5 or 10 minutes, the attendant comes back again, except with another attendant, and he's telling me again in Nepalese that I have to get off the train. I'm pretending like, or at least my dog does, and I'm telling him again in English, I don't understand. I said I bought this ticket and for the whole room, and I explained it again in English like I did with the first man. He left, supposedly, I assumingly not speaking English, and then he left, and I'm thinking, oh, thank you, Lord, because I'm not leaving him, and I'm praying again, Lord, I'm not leaving him. Please provide a way. And while I'm praying, another man, a Nepalese man, walks in. He looks like a Western man, very high class man. He looks like he was educated, clean cut, very proper kind of a man. Looked like he'd probably had some higher education. He looked like he was a professional. And he walks into the room and he says, "Is this an extra bed?" And I said, "Well, it is, but it's not up for sale because I bought the whole room." And he spoke very, very good English. And I said, because I'm traveling with my dog, I was told that I had to purchase the whole room in order to travel with him. And then he showed, and he said, "Oh, I have another room as well, but the man that I was supposed to share the room with, his wife decided to come along, and now she is taking the second bed. And I told her and him that they could have the room, and I would see if I could find something else." So I'm just seeing if I, if this is an extra bed, if I could have the extra bed. And I'm thinking, this is not a good workout, because in that culture, a man and a woman should not be traveling together if she is not with her male family member. Women travel with their fathers, with brothers, with uncles, but not men who are not part of the family. So they travel. Women are limited in their travel. So he's explaining, he said, this is the only room left. This is the only bed that there is. And all this is going through my mind. And I'm thinking, this is not a good idea. But he just had a presence about himself that was so peaceful and so just unassuming, and just I knew that it was going to be okay. I knew that there wasn't going to be any hanky panky with him. Um, it just something told me that it was all going to be okay, and he pleaded with me to have that second bed against saying, vacillating, for the first couple of minutes in our conversation, I eventually said yes. And he said, "Good, thank you. How about if you take the bottom bed so your dog can sleep on the floor right next to you, and I will take the top bunk, so you can be close to your dog." And I was thinking, well, that's kind of strange. How does he know my dog doesn't sleep on the bed? Because I don't allow my dogs to sleep on beds or get on furniture or anything. As much as I love them, their place isn't on furniture, in my opinion. So anyway, it did pass through my mind, and I just thought, okay. So anyway, he climbed up to the bed bunk up on top of my bed, and then as soon as he got up there, the first attendant came back, then the second attendant showed up behind him, and now a third attendant showed up. And now this third attendant is telling me in clear English that the dog has to get off the train. He is in no uncertain terms. The dog has to go, but I am welcome. And if I'm not willing to get him off the train and to leave and depart with him, then we both need to get off the train. So I'm thinking, okay, Lord, I mean, this happened all within nanoseconds of my thinking. And as they're speaking to me, and I said, okay, God, I guess this wasn't your plan. I'm just going to simply trust you that I am to get off the train. I started gathering my things to get off the train, having no idea how I was going to get out of the country before my visa expired at midnight that night. And I was in just disbelief. I was just kind of in a fog, saying, God, please help me. I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, just within seconds, the man jumps off the top of the bunk, and he stands in between me and the three men who are standing in the doorway. And he says, in no uncertain terms, in a clear English voice, he says, the woman and her dog are traveling with me. I could not believe what I was hearing. And then the four of them, the four men, went off around the corner. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what transpired. I don't know anything. All I know was that the man who was on the top bunk with me, uh, in my room, he came back and he just simply said, "You will have no more further problem with them. You and the dog can travel." And so he got up on his bunk, and then he said, "So where are you going?" And I told him where I was going. I was going to New Delhi. And then he said, "Oh, well, I'm going just beyond New Delhi." So, and then we were doing small talk, like about the culture and my language barrier, and which I learned to read Nepalese very fast. I mean, in just a matter of days, I learned how to read it. I was able to read the Nepalese Bible to all the kids back in Nepal. With sometimes I wasn't aware of what I was reading, but the language to pick up to read was very, very simple for me. But I was reading Bible stories to the kids, who got a kick out of me reading to them, but yet I really didn't even know what I was reading. And so we were just having this conversation, this man and me, and I said, "So how long of the ride is it?" And he proceeded to tell me how long the ride was and how many stops there are. And he said, "Well, tell you what, why don't you sleep as you need, and I will tell you every time we stop whether to either get off or not get off, because your dog may need to do some business. You may need to, just get some stretching, if we need to get something to eat or something. And then, but you have to be back on the train by the time I say. If I say 5 minutes, it's only 5 minutes, because when the train doors close, they don't pay attention to who has left the train. And if you're off, you're off, and you've missed your ride." So he really drilled it into me to be on the train in the time that he says. So at every stop, he would either tell me either get on or, or stay on. And sometimes he would say, well, we have 5 minutes here. So I wouldn't even bother to get off. Sometimes he would say, okay, 20 minutes. And I'd be off for maybe 5 minutes and get right back on. I did not want to miss that train. And so you can see here in, let's see. Oh, Michael, if you can fast forward those pictures to where you see the train, there's a man. There's a man with two children, or there's a man with his son, and his son is in a second picture, I should say. And then you'll notice the next picture then is of, now these are all their paraphernalia, that their prayer paraphernalia there in Nepal and India. This next picture is of the town that I was telling you about where I bought all the shoes from. And this next picture is of a man, father, who came seeking fingers for his son. And if I have time, I'll come back to that because I should have mentioned that before. But then the next picture is of me standing in front of the embassy in Kathmandu. And then the next picture is of me getting ready to leave on a train. I mean, on a bus to begin with, just to get me to the train. And then the next picture is of the train that I'm actually on. And so this train ride, you can see even hitchhikers up on top of the train. You can see their shadows there. And I'm taking a picture of out the train window of all these people, the shadows of these people that are sitting actually on top of the train. And so the man in me, we have very small conversation, doesn't last long, only because of my discomfort of being in a room with a man that I know is not my family. And so I keep my conversation with him very limited. I uh, so when he tells me I can get off, I get off, and when he tells me to stay, I stay. And then several days later, we finally get to our destination. It may have been 3 days later, 4 days later. I don't remember anymore, but it was several days, and and we end up in India in New Delhi. And he tells me, "Okay, this is where you're going to get off." And I look outside. The train stops, and I look out, and it's just packed full of people everywhere. And then the man tells me that when the train stops, there are going to be a ton of people trying to get off in this stop because the stop isn't very long, and it's only I think he only said 5 or 10 minutes, and there's a lot of people that have to get off this train. And if you're still on it, then you're still on it until the next place. Otherwise, and if you're off and you're supposed, they don't take attendance. So if you're on and you're supposed to be off, or if you're off and you're supposed to be on, they don't pay attention. And he said, so hurry as fast as you can to get off the train. So, and he said, it's going to be very difficult for you to manage with your luggage, though, because I had one piece of roll-on luggage and I had a backpack that then had food and water for my dog and me, and my passport, and the necessities that I had to have, my money, and he said that he would take my luggage and he would pass it out a window to me once I got off the train, and I could just find him, and then he would hand it to me. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is where our relationship ends now. Because my experience over many experiences has been that people are less than trustful. And maybe it was because they viewed me as an American and I could afford to have things stolen from me. I don't know, but towels and shirts and clothes and things that I'd purchased, would go missing. And so I thought, okay, I guess my whole luggage will be missing. So, but I'm now talking to God, and I just said, okay, God, I'm going to leave my luggage with him. And, these people probably need it much more than I do. And if they do, so be it. I'm good if I lose everything. But if I could have it back, I sure would appreciate it. But it seems like I can't handle my dog and the luggage and the amount of people all at the same time, making sure my dog doesn't get stepped on and hurt. And it was going to be enough just traversing the halls with him. So, but I pretty much had already given up on my luggage, knowing that I probably wasn't going to see it again. Finally, traversed the jam-packed hallways, just like he said it was going to be. It was taking one little tiny footstep in front of another. I was having to make sure my dog's feet weren't being stepped on with the people in front of me or the people behind me. And I was constantly saying, "Excuse me, you're stepping on my dog's feet." He was just such a trooper through all of this. As long as he was with me, he just felt like he was on top of the world. And so it just made it that much more important for me to really take care of him. So um, we finally get out. The train was just as he said, jam packed. Would take a while to get off, and it did. So I now get off of the train, and my eyes are scanning down the windows of the train, waiting for him to stick out his arm to see me, and then he could pass my luggage to me. And there was no arm, and I thought, okay, my luggage is gone. And in that split second, I just knew my luggage was gone. And then here he shows up. He shows up, sticks his arm out the window, and he points to to the ground. And I'm looking to where he's pointing, and there's my luggage on the ground. And I'm thinking, oh no, by the time I get to it, it's probably going to be gone. And the man that's standing there might be thinking it's his. I then the man pointed to me like it's okay, it's still your luggage, and he pointed. And so I really thanked him. I walked up to the man who was standing over my luggage, not at the beginning, not realizing that he was actually guarding my luggage, but I wrongly thought that maybe he thought my luggage was his, but I was going to give it to him anyway if I wasn't going to fight him for it. But he was actually standing guard over it. So I thanked the man from the window, and I just thanked him so much, and I waved at him. I walked over to the man, grabbed my luggage, and turned around, and the man in the window was gone, just gone. I looked at all the windows thinking maybe he went to the next one, but every single window was jam packed with people with their arms hanging out the window, saying hello or goodbye to their loved ones. Um, to me, I had no doubt that that was an angel that attended me. God is so willing to give us what we need at the times that we need it. Often He doesn't give us the faith that we need until the time we need it. Sometimes we even wonder if we even have the faith. But that's God's business to give us the faith. It's our job to read the word and to believe. And it's His job to give us the faith and to help us to go through whatever we need to go through. I'd like to share two more stories. Um, One is going back to India. I mean, going back to Nepal. Sorry. And so, if you could go back 3 pictures to the father standing with his son, I'd like to share a little miracle. Um, what happened here is this father, had heard that the clinic that I was running was performing miracles, and natural treatments and teaching people, and he had walked 2 days to get to me. We met him. I was actually with a group of people, um, uh, other missionaries, and we all ran into him. And he said that he was looking for the doctor that performs miracles in the clinic that performs miracles. And well, we really didn't know what he was talking about, and we started asking questions like, we want to know what this clinic is too. Where is it? And as he was talking, we realized that he was talking about our clinic. And we realized that that word had gotten around to what God was really doing at that clinic. So he wanted to ask us if we too would help perform a miracle for his son. Now, being the medical person, um, you know, I took a look at his son, and I saw that it was a birth defect where this little boy had no fingers at all and never did have fingers. And his father wanted him to grow up a strong man, being able to carry his full load as an adult man. So I'm thinking, oh boy, this is a really tall order. He wants me to perform a miracle, and I'm not the miracle performer. God is the miracle performer. But I was thinking, how can God even perform a miracle of giving this boy these fingers? I didn't want to let the boy down, and I didn't want to let the father down, but it just seemed like they had so much trust. So I asked him if he could meet me at the clinic later that day. So we finished our walk, and the group of people that I was with, and it was actually on a Sabbath afternoon. So he met me later in the clinic, and I said, "Come back in 4 days, and I will see what I can do for your son. I have to go into Kathmandu tomorrow, and let me see what I can do." I took the 2 day trip, or maybe it was even 5 days. I think I told the man to come back in 5 days. So I took the 2 day trip back into Kathmandu and immediately started to work. I started to pray and pray and pray. And I said, God, I don't know what to do or how to help this boy, but I know that you know if it's possible. Because I didn't promise the boy or his father. I just said, give me some time and I'll see what I can do and come back in 5 days. And during that time, God led me to one person after another, to the point where he led me to a surgeon. I had already taken pictures of the boy's hand in multiple shots, and and he had asked, "Do you have any pictures?" And I said, "Yes, I do." The surgeon sat down with me for about an hour, and he was trying to figure out how to make fingers for this little boy. I couldn't believe it, but by the time I left, he told me to send the boy and his father to his office. I went back, I finished my business, hurried back to my village. The boy and his father came back as they said they would, and I gave him all the information, and I said, I think that God is going to be in the miracle, or in the business of providing miracle fingers for your son. So I gave him all the information about where to go. We gave him some money for food. And of course, the doctor wasn't going to charge anything, because I told him that the father had no money. So there was no charge for anything. And I never saw the boy or his father again. But I know that God provided fingers for that young boy. I just thank God that he's still in the business of miracles. And Michael, if you can move the slides forward, 5 more slides to the point of where you see a mission house. Yes, right after India, right there. So once I landed in India, in New Delhi, I I said, "Okay, Lord." The angel had told me, that this was my end, and I now have my luggage, and I said, and I'm just dropped off in the middle of nowhere. People have their own cooking and things that they're doing, and things are really dark and kind of greasy there, and I'm just in kind of not knowing what to do. At least I know that I'm safe and I'm out of Nepal, and at least I can now start working on my visa from India in a legal manner. So I I then prayed and I said, "Oh God, please help me. Um, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do." And I just said, "Please guide me somewhere." First of all, I need a place to call home. So guide me to a hotel, and then I'm going to need a place to find food. And and I so I spent a couple of days. I'll tell you really quickly what happened when I first got there. So I'm now here in New Delhi. I have nowhere to go, and I just say, God, guide me. Somebody tells me to go to this hotel, and it was about $1.50 a night, and I said, okay, I'll take it. Now, um, and I and the man walked me up to my room, and he carried my luggage for me. Well, and then so my dog and I walked in first. He came in after me with my luggage, and he wouldn't leave. And I'm thinking, oh no. And for those of you who watched part 2 of my testimony, realize that that I had already been harassed again and again by several of the government officials there, and here I am now in another situation where this man now won't leave my room, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? Um, so thankfully, he had fear of my dog, and I finally literally had to push him out with my hands. I had to lay my hands on him and push him out of my room, and then I just laid against my back against the back of the door, and then I went to go lock it and realized that it was just the lock of like on a bathroom door, just a little eyelet with a little hook, and that's all it was. And I was like, oh God, I can't stay here. And I then went to the um, I just said, God, I can't stay here. I need a place where I know I'm going to be safe. I know this place is only $1.50, and but please guide me somewhere else. So I run down the stairs. I leave my dog for the only first and only time, the whole time that I was in Nepal and India, and I left him there. I ran down the stairs, ran down the street, and said, God, guide me to a hotel. And I asked another passerby where a nice hotel was, ran there, and it was $3 a night at that hotel. And I said, God, that's a lot of money. That's $3 a night. Is that okay that I stay there? And he gave me the assurance that yes, that's fine, and I'll be safe. Ran and got a Sherpa, handed showed him some money, had him run up the stairs with me, right back down the stairs. Big story there that I don't really have time to finish right now, but ended up safe. I then called a mission group and asked for some help, and they were very glad to help, which I was very grateful for. And this was where they told me that they had a mission house. So this is up in Missouri, and it's there's a lot of um, there are some uh, British people there, and there's people that know English there, and that it would be a nice place that I could stay where I could work on my visa until I can get back into Nepal again. Oh, I just thank them so much. And so that was my home then for the next several months. It ended up being 4 months because I never did get back to Nepal. And this next picture is with my dog. I don't think I showed a picture of him yet. And so that's the beautiful scenery that you see in the background there. And that's Jaguar, my little lover boy. And so there was a couple of interesting things that happened here. One, there was everybody wanted my dog. I must have been asked 30 times or more to exchange my dog for the hand of their child, and I kept saying no. I don't want your child. I want my dog. That's your child. You keep your child. And they were serious. They would have traded me. They saw my dog as more valuable than their child, which I was heartbroken for. Um, but anyway, so I was, once I landed here at the house, I said, okay, God, I'm going to be here a while I work on my visa. I want something to do. What can I do? Lead me to something to work on, something to help people, because I don't want to just sit here and do nothing. So I was helping schools do immunizations, and I was going, to do different things at different schools, and people would ask me then to do some health talks for them. People would come to the house for medical care, minor things, and basically whatever people asked me to do. If I was able to do it, I would do it. I helped people dig ditches and anything to be of help to people. And then one day I decided to walk in town. So I walked in town, and down this, it's just like a little tourist road, not very long. Wasn't even an eighth of a mile, and there were several stores along both routes. And I saw a Bible store, and I thought, well, that's interesting that there's a Bible store here among the Hindus. So I decided to walk into it. And the first thing I thought of was, I wonder if their Bibles are the same as ours in English. So I walked over to the Bibles, and I found one in English, and and something told me, I said, okay, well, the easiest thing to look for is the 10 Commandments. I wonder if all 10 Commandments are the same, because I know some other faiths kind of rewrite the 10 Commandments. So I thought I would see, does this equal with my Bible, or a different Bible, a different version of a Bible. And so I'm looking up the 10 Commandments, and I'm reading the fourth commandment, to keep the Sabbath holy. And right at that time, one of the associates come over, and a tall, nice looking man, and he says, can I help you? And as I'm reading the fourth commandment, I handed the open Bible, put the open Bible in his hands, and pointed to the fourth commandment and said, have you ever read this? And pointed to it. And I gave him a minute to read it, and he just was in silence. And during that silence, I knew something was happening, because his head went down into the book and back again, like as if he was reading was really true. Well, he was struggling, and it was something that he had never seen before, and that was the fourth commandment, to remember the Sabbath, to keep it holy. And he said, are there any other verses like this? And I said, well, sure, there's a lot of them. I think the 168 or something. I knew at that time how many exact verses there were that had the word Sabbath in it. And I said, well, sure, there's about 168 of them, I think. And he said, well, will you show them to me? And I said, sure. And he said, well, show my friend too. So we went over to the desk, where the associate's desk, and the man said to his friend, he said, you have to read this. There is something in the Bible that I have never read before. Have you ever read this? And he put the Bible in the hands of his friend and showed him the fourth commandment. And his friend said, no, I have never read this either. Are there more verses like this? And I said, yes, well, there's several. So we sat down right then and there and did a Bible study on the Sabbath. And then after that study, I got up to leave, and he said that the tall man asked me, "Will you come back again tomorrow and do another Bible study with us?" I said, "Sure." So I came back day after day after day, one study after another, and after that study, they'd ask me to come back and do another one, whether it was monsoons and raining and pouring, or whether it was sunny and dry. I was always there day after day. Then, after several weeks of doing Bible studies every day, the man, the original man that I had handed the Bible to, the tall man, he asked me if you, and you can change the slide to the next slide, and he asked me if if um if he could come to my place the next day. I was wondering, wow, I wonder why he wants to come to my place. But nevertheless, I said sure, and he said, I want to talk to you about something private, and I said sure. On that case, so he came over the next day, and in that picture, you will see three men in the back, and it's the tall one to the right of the woman in the green there. He and I believe it was the man in the middle was also the other associate that was there, and then the third man there was a friend of theirs. And then there were several more as well, which I didn't get a picture of. This was actually the last day, or one of the last days. And and so he came the next day, and he he said, "Would you mind if I bring my friends with me?" I said, "No, I don't mind at all. Bring as many friends as you want." And I believe that this was the picture of that night when he brought him, that other associate, and another friend. I believe that was our first night of the study. And then he said, at the end of that study, he said, "Would you mind if I brought more friends tomorrow night?" I said, "I don't care. Bring as many people as you want. We can all study together." So he came night after night, and every night there were more and more men that would continue to come. I didn't think anything of it. And then he said to me, after several more nights of studies, he said, "Would you mind if I come tomorrow night by myself?" I said, "I don't care. Come by yourself. Come with a group. Makes no difference. We'll study no matter what." So this this was a miracle night that I wouldn't miss for anything. And he came that last night by himself, and he said, "I have something to share with you." And I said, "Okay, what do you have to share?" And he said, "I want you to know that all of us and all these men that you've been studying with, we are all pastoral students in a university, and we are in," I think he said, the second or third year of school, and and that he has dropped out of this pastoral school. And my heart sank. But then he said that, "I also want you to know that I have applied and have been accepted into Spicer University." Well, I was a brand new Adventist. I had no idea what Spicer University was. And I said, "Okay, so what's Spicer University?" And he said that that's the local Seventh-day Adventist college, and I've just been accepted, and I wanted to tell you that, and I wanted to tell you that personally and to thank you. And I said, "Well, what about the other men?" I mean, here I am thrilled, that he's accepted every single Bible study that I gave him, and many of the men accepted the Bible studies as well, but weren't as convicted and ready to jump on board with the Sabbath issue, I guess. But um, what a miracle that God is still in the business of moving hearts. When we get out of our little um, our little comfort zone, God is so willing to provide these miracles for us when we're humble, when we have the least amount of expectation, and when we are just simply letting Him lead in our life. In one of these trips back and forth, numerous trips that I had gone on teaching these men was, of course, I always took my dog with me every single time. He went everywhere with me. I never went into a store or a house or a building at all. If he wasn't invited, if he wasn't allowed to go in, I didn't go in. But there was only one place all that time that he wasn't allowed in, and then I just never went in. So one of these times when I was walking back and forth to study with these men, there were, keep in mind that there were people all the time asking me to exchange their children for my dog. And and one of these times was when four men approached me, four adult young men. They must have been in their, 19, 20, 21, 22 years range. And the four adult men approached me and surrounded me, and they said, one of the men said, "Give me my dog back." And I was thinking, this is my dog. And I'm thinking, oh no, I'm going to get beat up and possibly die for my dog. And as I'm thinking, and I said, God, please help me. And as I'm thinking to myself and praying to God in my mind, the leader came up to me and stepped even closer into my personal space. And he said, I said, give me my dog back. Now, because of so many people wanting my dog, I made sure nobody knew his name. And I did that very intentional. And I called him by all different names. And so nobody would know his name. And I always carried his dog tags, never on him, but always on me. I always kept his dog tags in my pocket. And I never called him by his name, which was Jaguar, in public. I always called him by nicknames in public. So, because if I ever had to prove that he was my dog, um, I did that on purpose. That was the only way I'd be able to prove it. And so um, this man is now, again, for the third time, now all four of these men, they are all in my personal space. They're all surrounding me and dog. And he said, I said, give me my dog back. And then at that moment, I said, and I mean, I was praying, of course, and I said, "Oh God, I'm not leaving my dog. I am not going to leave my dog. I will not willingly give him up. I will get beat up or killed if I have to, but you gave me this dog as a miracle to stay here, and I don't believe that you put him here with me for it to end like this, just like for him to starve or anything else." Or any other time, even on the train, I was not going to leave him. So I just was adamant. And God knew that I was adamant. I was not going to leave him. And I knew right then and there that I was going to get beat up for my dog. And I was not going to allow them to take my dog without a fight. And how this young lady missionary, in a dress no less, in a skirt, was going to fed off four adult men, I did not know. But all I knew was I was going to fight for him. And I asked the Lord, I knew that he fought for Israel, and I knew that he fought for Joshua and Jacob, and I knew that he could fight for me too. So I just boldly said, I'll tell you what. I told the ringleader, I said, you call him by your name, or I said, I'll make a deal with you. You call him by your name, by his name, and if he comes to you, he's your dog. But if I call him by name, but if you call him by name and he comes to me, you call him by name and he comes to me, he's my dog. Well, of course, first of all, he knew he didn't know Jag's name. And second of all, I knew that about my dog, that when somebody else called him, he always came to me. I knew that about him. So God gave me that instant knowledge, and the man, he just was more insistent on giving him his dog, and I just continued to trust in God. And when they weren't backing up from me, I said, okay, the fight's on. I'm not leaving him. I'm not giving up willing, Lord. You're going to have to fight with me or for me. And at that moment, my dog, which he had never done since and never had done before, he his back legs spread out, the hackles on his back of his head and his neck was straight up. He growled in a growl that I had never heard since. I had never heard ever, only that one time in his whole 14 years of life. That was the only time I ever heard him growl like that. And the men, all four of them backed up from me, and all of a sudden, it was like God parting the Red Sea for me. And I just bravely walked right through those men. I never looked back. I never looked to see if they were going to jump on me, which I thought they were. But then I looked down at my peripheral vision and saw my dog, who was very well trained to train. He was trained to go where I go and walk where I walk. And if I turn, he turns. And he always keeps his head and his eyes on me. But this time, he had his head completely turned backwards, looking at those men. And I knew that God had a hold of him, because God had used him as a mighty missionary many times. And I knew that I was not going to be jumped on. I just walked through bravely, and I just kept on walking, and I told myself, you are not going to lose faith right now. You are not going to look back and to see what they're doing. You are just going to keep on going bravely. And I knew the Lord was on my side. And as soon as we turned a corner, I saw my dog turn his head towards me and look at me again. And I knew that we were out of the sight of those men. And then that's when I turned around and they were out of sight. And I sat on the wall with my knees knocking, knowing that God had just given me the faith and the strength that I needed to get through that situation. That's enough mission stories for now. I have several more, but I hope that they have blessed you. These are stories of God. They aren't stories of me, but they are stories of His mercy and His goodness, and the multitude of ways that He is so willing to help His people. He is there to fight for me, and He's there to fight for you, just like He's always been there to fight for all of His people in the past. Trust Him. Go where He wants you to go, and don't fear. For He gives us a power. He doesn't give us the power. He doesn't give us the. He doesn't give us the a power of fear or a spirit of fear, but a power of love of a of a sound mind. And I'm just so grateful for Him, that He's so willing to work with each one of us. So God bless each one of you, and I'll see you again.